You know that feeling, right? Like happiness is this incredibly fragile thing, always just out of reach.
Mm.
Or maybe it feels like your own mind is the enemy, just this chaotic storm of worries and regrets and cravings you just can't seem to control.
Yeah, that's a pretty common human experience, I think. We often feel swept away by our internal world, reacting automatically to thoughts and feelings that seem to steer us towards discomfort more often than, well, peace.
Absolutely. But what if?
Yeah.
What if that wasn't the only way the mind had to work? What if happiness wasn't some like random feeling that might visit, but a state you could actually cultivate, like a muscle you could train?
That's exactly the fascinating idea at the heart of our deep dive today. We're looking into the possibility of consciously training your mind for well-being, drawing from ancient insights but filtered through a rigorously modern skeptical perspective.
Right. And our source material for this is a book called How to Train a Happy Mind, A Skeptic's Path to Enlightenment. It takes traditional meditative practices, some refined over literally centuries, and reframes them using the language and understanding of, well, psychology and science.
It's a really smart approach, actually, making this profound wisdom accessible without demanding belief in any particular dogma.
And our mission with this deep dive is basically to cut straight to the chase, unpack the core ideas, extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key techniques this book offers. We want to help you understand how this approach works, maybe get a few surprising insights, and hopefully experience some aha moments about your own mind and how you might just be able to steer it.
Okay, let's jump in then. So the book is grounded in something called the Lamrim, which is Tibetan for graduated path. Think of it as a systematic curriculum for training the mind, perfected over ages by masters like Atisha and Jetsun Kappa.
Wow. So this isn't just someone's new idea. It's built on a really robust, time-tested framework. And at its heart are some pretty fundamental philosophical points, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that nothing is truly random. Everything, whether it's a physical event or a thought, has a cause.
Right.
And crucially, that the mind works by habit. Positive thoughts tend to lead to happiness, and negative ones, well, unhappiness.
Right. It also emphasizes the preciousness of this life, the reality that everything is constantly changing, and that we exist within a universe that's deeply interconnected, not just a collection of isolated things. The traditional Lamrim suggests these insights can help transform difficult states like sadness and anger into positive ones like joy and compassion.
But here's the critical twist for the skeptical path this book takes.
Mm.
The author recognized that traditional teachings often present concepts like karma, spanning lifetimes, rebirth, or other realms as, non-negotiable truths.
Mm.
And for many modern people, especially those who rely on scientific evidence and empirical observation, that can be a real sticking point.
Absolutely. So the skeptical approach in this book says, okay, let's focus on what we can observe and verify. So it emphasizes psychological and observable cause and effect right here in this life.
Okay.
It's about making this one precious life meaningful without needing faith in past or future ones. And it looks at the universe through the lens of science, galaxies, evolution, physics, not supernatural beliefs. The author specifically curated and adapted the meditations from the tradition that resonated most powerfully with skeptical students who weren't necessarily looking for spiritual faith, but, practical mental tools.
Got it. So it's about finding the profound psychological wisdom within these ancient practices and leaving aside the parts that require a leap of faith, if that's not where you're coming from.
Precisely.
Which leads perfectly into the core methods this book presents, boiling down all the hundreds of variations of meditation to just two fundamental types.
That's right. The two pillars are stabilizing meditation and analytical meditation.
Okay. Stabilizing meditation. That sounds like what most people imagine when they hear meditation, doesn't it? Just sitting there trying to clear your mind.
It's definitely the more widely known one, yeah.
Yeah.
Often practiced as mindfulness, its primary function is to calm the mind and make it more focused. You're training yourself to be present, to observe your thoughts and feelings without immediately getting carried away by them or, acting on them. It's about quieting the mental noise and reducing that automatic reactivity.
So it's learning to just be with whatever's happening internally, like watching clouds drift by without needing to jump on any of them.
Exactly. It builds the foundation of mental stillness and clarity. But the book emphasizes that this is only half the equation. The other half, often less understood, is analytical meditation.
Right. And this isn't just passively observing, is it? This sounds like where the training part really comes in.
Precisely. Analytical meditation is actively working with your mind. It's not about stopping thoughts, but about directing them. You're deliberately steering your mind away from patterns that cause distress, like anxiety, habitual fear, or constant craving, and cultivating thoughts and perspectives that lead to beneficial states, like genuine satisfaction, inner joy, or an open heart.
Okay, so this sounds less like emptying the mind and more like actively reshaping it, like
Yeah.
challenging unhelpful thoughts and deliberately choosing better ones.
That's a great way to put it. You're using logic, reflection, and imagination to analyze your internal landscape and proactively plant seeds for better mental habits.
Okay.
And this is where the skeptical approach powerfully connects with modern science. Analytical meditation functions very similarly to cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Ah,
But in a self-directed meditative context, you're using rational inquiry to identify distorted thoughts and train your mind towards healthier, more accurate responses.
so it's like giving yourself a kind of guided therapy session, but as a meditation practice, identifying those thought traps and deliberately thinking your way out of them.
Exactly. And it ties directly into what we know about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to actually rewire itself.
Right.
Every time you think a thought, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with it. If you repeatedly think anxious thoughts, you're reinforcing an anxious mind. But if you consciously practice cultivating gratitude or a sense of calm, you're building pathways for those states.
That's a powerful connection. It makes total sense. Our minds aren't just static. They're being constantly shaped, often unconsciously, by everything we consume and experience. Analytical meditation sounds like taking the steering wheel back.
That's the goal, to consciously choose the direction of your mental habits. And the two types work together beautifully.
How so?
Well, stabilizing meditation provides the calm, focused state you need for the analytical work to be effective. You need a steady boat, to navigate complex waters.
Makes sense.
So a typical session might start with stabilizing to settle down, move into analytical to explore and transform, and then return to stabilizing to allow the insights to settle and deepen.
Okay, that structure makes sense for practice. And going back to something you mentioned earlier, the book makes a point that meditation isn't just about relaxation, even though that's often a benefit.
Right. While relaxation is often a necessary condition for effective meditation, it's hard to train your mind if you're completely stressed out. It's not the ultimate purpose.
Right.
You can relax by taking a bath, watching a movie, going for a walk. Those are important, sure, but meditation in this context is specifically a practice aimed at enhancing your best qualities, reducing your inner suffering, and ultimately enabling you to benefit yourself and others more effectively.
So think of relaxation as the warm-up, maybe. But the real workout is building mental strength and flexibility, like exercise for the mind, keeping it healthy and functional, not just a temporary break from stress.
Exactly. And understanding the nature of reality is key to that training. This path emphasizes seeing two fundamental truths clearly: impermanence and cause and effect.
Embracing impermanence. That feels counterintuitive to happiness, doesn't it?
Sure.
We usually cling to things staying the same. I think Stephen King said people's greatest fear is change.
It feels that way initially, yeah. But the book argues that a clear-eyed look at the reality that nothing lasts is actually incredibly liberating and gives life urgency and meaning. It's not about being fatalistic, but realistic. The book uses the example of a teacher discussing impermanence right after 9/11, not to minimize the tragedy, obviously, but to highlight that such events, in their terrible way, remind us of the constant flux of existence and the urgency of making our lives and our actions count now.
So it's about finding purpose and presence in the face of change, not denial.
Precisely. It gives you courage during difficult times because you remember that problems aren't permanent. They too will change. It fosters gratitude for what you have in this moment because you know it's fleeting. It builds resilience because setbacks are seen as part of the natural flow, not catastrophic endpoints. And it motivates you to be an agent of positive change because change is always possible.
I like that idea of seeing the arc of change in everything.
Yeah, think about it. Buildings are conceived, built, used, and eventually they crumble or get replaced. Possessions wear out, get lost, break.
Sure.
Leaders, no matter how powerful, rise and fall. The book uses the stark example of Saddam Hussein, ruling with absolute power and ending up hiding in a hole.
Wow.
Even entire civilizations have a lifespan, averaging only about 350 years before they transform or collapse.
And bringing it inward. Our own bodies are a constant cascade of change. Heartbeat, breathing, cells dying and regenerating.
Constantly.
Our minds too. Thoughts and feelings arise and pass away every second. Even our relationships are in flux. Friends drift apart or become adversaries. Enemies can reconcile.
Acknowledging this constant flow helps us live more fully now, appreciate fleeting joys, and not get hung up on the small, temporary irritations. And tied into this is the principle of cause and effect.
The idea that nothing is random, everything has a cause. The book uses that fantastic sequence from a Terrence Malick film that traces everything back to the Big Bang to show how interconnected everything is in this vast chain of conditions.
Right. Now, the source is careful to point out the difference here between the traditional concept of karma, which involves invisible moral cause and effect across lifetimes, and the scientific view, where physics might even suggest fundamental randomness at a quantum level.
Okay.
The book isn't asking you to believe in karma in the traditional sense if you're a skeptic.
So how does the skeptical approach use cause and effect then?
It focuses on the psychological and observable effects of our actions in this life. From this perspective, Buddhist ethics become powerfully practical. Harming others causes significant psychological pain to ourselves.
And science backs this up, right? Our brains seem wired for connection. Prosocial behavior, helping others, is linked to our well-being and has evolutionary advantages. Communities that support each other thrive.
Exactly. Robert Thurman is quoted suggesting the universe itself seems biased towards connection. Harming is disconnection, and it seems to have a cost. This lens of cause and effect can also be incredibly helpful when processing difficult interactions or misdeeds, whether yours or someone else's.
How so?
Well, when someone acts harmfully, understanding the complex chain of causes and conditions that led to their action, their upbringing, their fears, their ingrained habits, external pressures, it helps you see that their action often isn't purely random malice.
Right.
It arises from a web of factors. This perspective can make forgiveness, both of others and ourselves, much more accessible.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of just labeling someone as bad, you see their action as a product of causes. And the book describes a practice for processing our own misdeeds, which sounds quite structured and different from just feeling guilty.
Yes, it's a four-part process, starting with rejoicing. You first reflect on the good things you have done to build a sense of self-worth, because you need a strong foundation to look honestly at mistakes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then comes regret, honestly acknowledging the harm caused, wishing you hadn't done it, and resolving not to repeat it. The book is clear this isn't guilt. Guilt judges the person as bad. Regret focuses on the action and the desire to change.
Okay, self-worth first, then honest acknowledgement without self-condemnation.
What about the other two steps?
Remedy involves something like a visualization of cleansing light, symbolizing the understanding that our actions are often influenced by past conditioning and affirming our capacity to be otherwise. It's acknowledging the layers involved. And resolve is making a firm, even small commitment to act differently next time, visualizing yourself doing the better action.
So it's a systematic way to learn from mistakes using cause and effect thinking to understand why things happened and build new habits for the future without getting bogged down in unproductive shame. Precisely. And this path takes us even deeper into understanding the mind itself and where authentic happiness truly originates.
We touched on the Buddhist model of the mind, earlier mental factors versus experiencing consciousness itself.
Right. Mental factors are the specific thoughts, emotions, perceptions that arise. Understanding these, like pausing at the point of the feeling tone, is this pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, helps you interrupt the automatic chain reaction that leads from a feeling to an urge to an action.
Like feeling a pang of discomfort, and before you react with anger or withdrawal, just noticing that discomfort itself.
Exactly. Just experiencing the feeling without immediately elaborating on it or reacting. And the path also includes practices to experience consciousness more directly, that pure awareness itself, separate from the content appearing within it. Watching thoughts come and go, or even observing the tiny gaps between thoughts. The book compares seeing these moments to calculus, breaking down seemingly continuous experience into its discrete parts.
Experiencing those moments of geeing, where the mind isn't caught up in thinking or striding.
Yes. And for a skeptical mind, understanding the nature of consciousness can be tricky because it's not a physical object. The book uses analogies to help. Software is real and functional, but isn't hardware. Mathematics describes physical reality, but isn't physical itself.
And love. We all experience love. It feels incredibly real, but you can't point to a physical location for it, can you? It's an immaterial phenomenon with profound effects.
Perfect analogy. Galileo even made a similar point centuries ago. noting that qualities like tastes, sounds, and colors aren't inherent in objects themselves, but are produced by our conscious mind interacting with those objects.
Interesting.
This exploration of mind is crucial for understanding where we seek refuge or support.
And traditionally, we often look for that outside ourselves in relationships, achievements, possessions, entertainment, even food or substances.
Yes, and the skeptical path, like the traditional one, points out the problem.
Yeah.
These external sources are impermanent. They are subject to change, loss, and ultimately they cannot provide stable, lasting happiness. They're constantly subject to the suffering of change.
So, real, reliable refuge has to be found somewhere else.
Within. Finding a source of inner stability, comfort, self-respect, and joy within your own mind. This comes from recognizing the mind's fundamental clarity, its openness, and its incredible capacity for positive change. Thich Nhat Hanh is quoted saying, "True happiness comes from having a home inside."
And building that inner refuge starts with practices like the rejoicing we discussed earlier, acknowledging your own positive actions and qualities.
Exactly. Recognizing your inherent goodness and potential is a key foundation. The book also points out the traditional practice of examining potential teachers for years, sometimes 12.
Wow, 12 years?
Yeah, as a safeguard against misplaced faith in external figures, emphasizing that the ultimate capacity for refuge and enlightenment resides within you.
This leads us to confront the nature of suffering itself. Robert Thurman frames this brilliantly, suggesting the root of suffering is the simple, often unconscious belief that each of us is just a little bit more important than everyone else.
Oof.
Yeah.
That subtle, pervasive self-centeredness is presented as the fundamental driver of our unhappiness. Our worries, our frustrations, our cravings, they often stem from prioritizing our own comfort, views, and desires over others.
And the book presents the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, not as religious dogma, but as four facts, inviting an empirical investigation.
Yes. Fact 1. Life is unsatisfactory. This includes obvious suffering like pain and loss, but also the suffering of change.
Right, even pleasure ends.
Exactly. It's ultimately unsatisfactory because it's impermanent. And then there's the all-pervasive suffering, the underlying unease driven by our self-centered ignorance, which taints even seemingly neutral experiences.
So even when things are objectively okay, there's this subtle layer of dissatisfaction because we know it's temporary, or because our self-centered perspective distorts it somehow.
Precisely. Fact 2. This dissatisfaction has a cause, our delusions, primarily attachment, anger, and that underlying ignorance or self-centeredness. These delusions make us exaggerate qualities in things and cling or push away based on those distortions.
Okay, but there's hope. Fact 3. Suffering can be stopped.
Absolutely. Mental dissatisfaction can be eliminated. The fact that some people navigate immense difficulties with grace and inner peace shows this isn't just theoretical.
And fact 4. There is a path to stop suffering.
Which involves systematically reducing those delusions and cultivating positive states through practices like the ones we're discussing. The book uses a powerful analogy of the second arrow.
Ah, yeah.
The first arrow is a difficult event that happens to you, a loss, criticism, illness that's unavoidable, part of life. But the second arrow is your reaction to it, your rumination, self-pity, anger, despair. That second arrow is caused by your delusions, and that one you can learn to stop firing. You can eliminate it.
Wow. So much of our suffering isn't the event itself, but our internal response, which we can learn to change. That's incredibly empowering.
It completely reframes where happiness comes from. It emphasizes, again, that happiness is an internal state, cultivated by the mind, not dependent on external circumstances. Look at people who seem to have everything but are miserable, versus others facing huge challenges with genuine inner joy.
And the alternative to doing this inner work, the book argues, is a form of self-deception.
Yes, basically choosing a comfortable illusion over facing reality and working with it. Like Cypher in The Matrix, choosing to go back because the steak tasted better there.
Right.
In the real world, this can manifest as creating bubbles of denial, surrounding yourself with people who only validate your distorted views. The book mentions examples like leaders detached from reality, surrounded by sycophants Kim Jong-un, Paul Allen late in his life, maybe Mark Zuckerberg's isolated position.
Living in a self-created echo chamber, unable to see things clearly. This ties into the concept of renunciation, which can sound a bit severe, maybe, to a skeptic.
It often does, yeah. But the book clarifies that true renunciation isn't giving up worldly pleasures or relationships. It's giving up the delusions wrapped around them, the grasping attachment, the aversive anger, the self-centered ignorance.
Oh, okay.
It's renouncing the hold that things like gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame have over your mind, not renouncing engaging with life itself.
So it's about being free from being controlled by your reactions to life's ups and downs, not opting out of life itself.
Yeah.
You can still enjoy pleasure, just without the desperate clinging. You can still experience pain, but without the added layer of suffering from resistance or self-pity.
Exactly. It's a release from mental bondage.
Yeah.
And the path continues beyond focusing just on your own mind, expanding outwards to cultivate equanimity and practice universalizing.
Equanimity, described as what is love,
Right.
but not romantic love, right?
It's about developing equal affection and concern for everyone. The meditation involves visualizing a friend, a neutral stranger, and someone you see as an enemy. You reflect on how your feelings towards them are often based solely on how they seem to impact you right now, and how you've assigned them this fixed role.
But those roles aren't fixed, are they?
Hmm.
Friends can become strangers or enemies, enemies can become allies, and how you see someone isn't how everyone else sees them.
Precisely. Someone who's your enemy might be a beloved family member or dear friend to others. Equanimity is based on recognizing this impermanence of relationships and the fundamental human right that applies to everyone, the desire for happiness and freedom from suffering.
Right.
Ultimately, achieving happiness for everyone would make the world a much better place for you too.
And developing this non-biased view makes you more effective at helping others because your motivations aren't tangled up in personal attachment or aversion. The book shares that anecdote about the friend giving a precious thanka to the Dalai Lama feeling proud,
Yeah.
only for the Dalai Lama to immediately re-gift it.
Yeah.
It highlights how our biased affection can be challenged when confronted with a more universal perspective.
A perfect example of attachment to my relationship and my gift being transcended by a broader generosity. Building on equanimity is the practice of universalizing.
This sounds like actively expanding your personal experience to include others.
It's a powerful antidote to self-centeredness. You use your own experiences, both positive and negative, as a way to connect with others and open your heart. When you experience pleasure, enjoying a meal, hearing great music, achieving a goal, you imagine sharing that joy and satisfaction with everyone who would appreciate it.
So instead of just thinking, this is great for me, you think, may all beings get to experience this kind of simple joy.
Exactly. And when you experience difficulty losing a job, feeling criticized, facing illness, you wish for everyone else suffering in similar ways to be free from that suffering.
So I'm struggling with feeling unfairly criticized. Instead of just getting angry, I'd think, may no one experience unjust criticism.
Yes. Or if you get a promotion, may everyone find meaningful work and be appreciated. It actively counters the tendency to feel hopeless or angry when you're in pain, and selfish or even guilty when things are good. It transforms personal ups and downs into opportunities to connect with the universal human experience.
It really shifts the focus from just me to us.
Precisely. And this expanded perspective lays the groundwork for exploring the final, perhaps most profound concept in this path: emptiness.
Emptiness. Okay, that word can sound a bit scary or even nihilistic to a skeptic. Like nothing matters.
And that's a common misunderstanding the book addresses directly. Emptiness, or shunyata, isn't about things not existing. It's the understanding that nothing exists independently, in and of itself, separate from causes and conditions.
Okay.
Everything arises from dependent arising in an endless, interconnected chain of causes and conditions. It's a property of everything, an active process of being interconnected, not a void of nothingness. The book uses the simple example of a child's hand and arm. Where does one end and the other begin?
Right, there's no sharp line.
There's no fixed inherent boundary. Their existence is dependent.
So it's not nothingness, but interconnectedness. Like everything is part of this vast dynamic web.
Exactly. It's a more expansive, profound, interdependent way of existing than the way things appear to our default self-centered view, which tends to see everything as separate and fixed. The Dalai Lama is quoted saying, "Understanding emptiness should evoke a sense of fullness, not nothingness."
And how does this abstract-sounding concept help train a happy mind?
The book presents it as the ultimate antidote to the delusions of anger and craving. If you analyze an object you crave, or even your sense of self, and fail to find it existing independently, separate from everything else, it undermines the basis for clinging or pushing away.
Hmm.
If there's no inherently existing separate self that can be prominently damaged or insulted, how can criticism cut so deeply? You begin to see the difference between the reality of an event and the elaborate story you build around it based on your mistaken assumption of a fixed, independent self.
That connects powerfully with Einstein's view, doesn't it? He called the sense of a separate self an optical delusion and argued we need to expand our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature.
It does. The book suggests practices for analyzing the self, like looking at the Buddhist concept of the five aggregates form: feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness not as separate parts, but as the components we mistakenly perceive as a fixed, independent self.
Right.
You look for that independent self within these or within the moments of consciousness, finding it's merely designated based on these constantly changing components.
And recognizing that this self is dependently originated,
Yeah.
not fixed and separate.
It helps you feel less lonely, less needy, less unsatisfied because you realize your deeply interdependent nature. You are part of everything, and everything is part of you. It's not a scary void, but a profound connection.
So that's the journey this book lays out, from appreciating the opportunity of this life to understanding the fundamental interconnectedness of reality. How do you keep all these pieces together in practice? It sounds like a lot.
It is, yeah. The tradition emphasizes reviewing the entire path regularly, sometimes in a quick glance meditation that can take just a minute or two daily. It's a way to integrate the insights so they influence your daily life.
Like a quick mental checklist of the key principles.
Something like that. Briefly recalling the core insight for each stage: precious life, gratitude for the chance, impermanence, everything changes, live fully now, cause and effect, your mind shapes your reality, be responsible,
Huh.
refuge, find strength within, trust your potential. Suffering, it comes from delusions, not external events. Renunciation, letting go of the grip of delusions, not life itself. Equanimity, cultivate equal care for everyone. And emptiness, everything is interconnected, opening to a deeper reality.
It sounds like a comprehensive yet really practical framework for anyone looking to train their mind for genuine well-being, even if they approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're presented as actionable tools, meditations, reflections, ways of reframing your experience, backed by ancient wisdom and increasingly validated by modern psychology and science.
It really does offer a path to consciously navigate your inner world, build resilience in the face of life's inevitable challenges, improve your relationships, and find a more stable, reliable source of happiness right within yourself. It's not about pretending problems don't exist, but understanding their nature and using them as catalysts for growth.
And it fundamentally challenges some core assumptions we have about what happiness is and where it comes from, and even what we mean by me.
Yeah, it's really an invitation to explore the deepest potential of your own mind.
Okay, so thinking about everything we've unpacked from this book, if our deepest unhappiness really does stem from the deeply ingrained, often unconscious belief that we're just a little bit more important than everyone else, what would fundamentally change in your life right now, today, if you could somehow truly believe deep down in your bones that everyone else's happiness and suffering matter just as much as your own?